Hello everyone, my name is Joshua from TAG. Let me welcome you once again back to my channel. And as we all know, the motive behind this channel is to promote the knowledge of R among young people. So following on what we did in the previous video on how to use the for loop in R, today I want to introduce us to the usage of the while loop, the break statement, and the next statement in our programming. But before we go into what we have for today, let me remind us of the ongoing offer to get for free the soft copy of the first edition of my book titled Basic Statistics for Undergraduate Studies Using R. So all you need to do to get this free offer is to send an email to the mail you are seeing on the screen, or locally for impact@tagng.org, and you get this offer for free. So let's get back to what we have for today, the while loop. But before I go into this, I want to make a quick comparison between the for loop and the while loop. In a situation like we did in the previous video, in a situation where you have an understanding on the number of iterations to be carried out, the for loop is always very good. But in a situation where you want to keep executing a certain statement until a certain condition that is predefined is not certified, we use the while loop. So let's have an example. So let's take for instance that I have a value, a variable, and then I assigned the value of 65. So I know A for sure is 65. So to use the while loop, and this is the body for every basic while loop, you would have like the test condition. Then we have the curly bracket where you can easily put a statement you want to carry out inside the loop. So this is the way a typical body of a while loop function looks like. So I commit this and then I go to an example that I have for us. So while, then this is the condition I'm giving, while the value of A is less than 70. As soon as that condition is fulfilled, then perform whatever statement we have in the body of the loop. So why this is this, give a new value and say A equals A plus 2, then print A. So if you run this entire statement, you would have 67, 69, and 71. So let me provide a quick explanation to how we arrived at the result we are seeing on the console. So we know the initial value of A is 65. So this is what happens. We go into the while loop with the value 65. And so the first thing we need to evaluate is the test condition. And that is what we have in the first bracket, A less than 70. If that condition is true, then you have the access to execute whatever we have in the statement. So in this case, A is for sure less than 70, 65 is less than 70, and then you move into the loop, you reassign, you give A a new value by adding 2 to it, so it prints out 65 plus 2, which is 67, and then it goes again back to the value we assigned for A before, but now the value is now changed on the global environment to 67. So what comes into the while loop again in this place where we have A less than 70 is 67. So 67 is less than 70 for sure, then you have access to execute whatever you have in the loop statement. And so this value is updated again, and then we have 67 plus 2, and then that gives us 69, and then that is printed out as 69, and then it assumes the new value for A, and then that same 69 comes into the loop, the while loop, and so we say 69 less than 70, and it tells us that for sure this is true. As long as that is true, you have access to execute whatever you have in the body of the loop, and so A takes a new value which is 69 plus 2, and then it is printed out as 71, which is 69 plus 2. So we should be mindful of where we put the print function. For instance, I am going to turn around this whole thing again by saying y a, the same thing, y a is less than 70. So I am bringing the print condition on top, print a, and then give a new value, which is adding 2 to the value of a. Now let me give this again a new value of 65, and let's see how it goes in this case. So if I run this entire thing, I have 65, 67 and 69. So how does it go? So first, in the previous one, 65 was not included, but now 65 is included because of the positioning of the print function within the statement, the loop statement. So the first condition is that 65 is less than 70. If that is true, print a. The a that came in first into the loop is 65, so 65 for sure is printed, and then the value of a is updated from 65 to 65 plus 2, which is 67, and that is what takes over the value of the a we assigned initially to be 65. So the a is now 67, and so 67 comes into this loop. 67 less than 70, for sure that is correct. So the first thing that must be done as soon as that test condition is satisfied is to print a, which is 67, and then we go again by saying 67 plus 2 to be the new value of a, and that is 69. You take the 69 to assume the new value of a that will be coming into the while loop, and so 69 for sure is also less than 70. And so what do we do in this particular situation? We go into the loop statement and execute whatever thing we have inside. So it prints 69 out, and then a gets a new value of 69 plus 2, which is 71, and then that value goes back to become the value of a we have designed from the beginning, which has changed from 65 to 67, and now 69, and now 71. But in this case, 71 is not less than 70, it is greater than 70. So in that case, what we have inside the body of the loop will not be executed. Now let's move to how we can use the break statement in R programming, still using the same structure we have been using from time. So what I'm going to do here is to change the value of a on the global environment to 60. So I do that by saying a is 60, and so the next thing is to bring in the while. So the first thing that goes in is the test condition. So I want to test for while a is less than 70. So as soon as that condition is fulfilled, what exactly do I want to execute? So what I want to execute is very simple. First, print the value of a for me, and then inside this loop reassign the value of a to be a plus 2 as we have been doing before, and then I introduce the if condition. So in a situation where the value of a is equal to 68, now what do I want to happen? I want to break out of this loop as soon as the value of a is equal to 68. So if I run this thing, we have the result on the console: 60, 62, 64 and 66, and then I can provide a simple explanation to it. So the first value of a that comes into the while loop is 60, and so the test condition is 60 less than 70. This is true, and as soon as this is true, then we have access to execute whatever we have in the body of the loop. So the first thing we have to evaluate is to execute is print a, and so a is printed as 60. The next thing is reassign the value of a, add 2 to it, so that becomes 62. Is 62 equal to 68? No, so we're not breaking out of the loop. Then it goes again with the value 62 to be the start value for a, 62. So that is the value that comes into the loop. It is not yet printed. So then we say 62 less than 70, and so that condition is true. Then we have access to execute the next thing we have, the statement we already wrote in the loop body. So it prints 62. After that, it reassigns a new value for A, which is 62 plus 2, and that is 64. We check again, is 64 equal to 68? No, so we can't break out of the loop. It goes again to start the iteration again, but with a new value of 64. It does that, 64 this, less than this, it prints 64. Then it gives A new value again, which is 66. 64 plus 2 is 66 equal to 68. That is what we are asking using the if statement. No, so it won't break. It goes again with the value of 66 as the initial value for A, comes into the while loop. 66 less than 70 is true. It comes in, it prints 66. But now we have a new value to be reassigned for A, which is A equals A plus 2, which is 66 plus 2. That is 68. Now, if 68 equals 68 breaks, so we already arrived at that particular condition that the loop is going to break, that we're going to break out of the loop, and at that point it stops performing the iteration, and then we have the value 60, 62, 64 and 66. Again, just like I pointed our attention to the position of the print function, you also have to pay attention when interpreting the result you have on in R. You also have to pay attention to where you put the if condition. So for instance, in this other scenario, it is possible that we also bring everything from here. Let me cut everything I have here, Ctrl X, and then bring it to this point and paste it. So what we are doing here is, when this moves into the loop, immediately it moves into the loop, check that condition for if A is equal to 68. So let's take for instance again that I changed the value of A back to 60 from the 68 it currently zoom on the global environment. So now it's back to 60, and then let's run this whole thing and see what the result will bring out. So the result brings out 62, 60, 62, 64 and 66. So how do we have this result? Right now I believe we should have that understanding. So the first value of it that comes into the loop is 60. So 60 is less than 70 for sure. So the first thing we're asking is 60 equals to 68? No, so it's not gonna break out of the loop. So we print this. After that will print 60, and so 60 is printed, and we have A plus 2, which is 62, to be the new value for A that will come into the while loop. So 62 for sure is less than 70 and it's not equal to 68. Then that value is printed, and then a new value is given to A, which is 64. We do that until we get to 66. 66 goes into the loop, and then it is not equal to 68. It is printed, and now we have a new value for A, which is 68. 68 becomes the new value that comes into the loop. For sure 68 is less than 70, but the if condition is not satisfied because 68 is equal to 68. The condition is true that 68 is equal to 68, so then it breaks. We break out of the loop. So the next thing I want us to understand again is how we can apply this break statement within for loop. And by now I want to believe we understand how to use the for loop very well. So but let's remove the value we have for you on the global environment and give it a new value, but this time around not just a single number, but like a combination of number, like a vector. And so I'm calling this vector, let's say A is assigned to 1 to 6 for instance. And so on the global environment we have the value of A to be an integer from 1 ranging to 6. So we will have this understanding on how to use the for loop to say for, and then what we're going to do is to say for numeric, that is numbers that we have in A, what we want to do. for those numbers. So we have this understanding that you can easily print those numbers. Let's say print NUM, and so when you run this entire line of code, what is wrong? NUM. Okay, good. So when you run this entire line of code, you have 1 2 3 4 5 6. Now this is very easy. Now how do we bring in the concept of break and nest within this for loop? And this is what I'm going to do now. So for instance, we already have for numbers like numeric values in A, then we are printing numeric is fine. But in a situation where we want to introduce the concept of the break and the nest, we have to bring in again the condition if. So if NUM, which is numeric, let's take for instance, is equal to, let's say we want it to break at the level of 4, is equal to 4. So what do we want to do? Now I'm going to say break. So if I go back to reassign this value, there is no need for this, but let's just do it. There is no need for reassigning because the value hasn't changed on the global environment. So now we have the if now embedded within the for loop. Now this is what happens. So within that loop, we are saying if that number that is in A is equal to 4, break out of the loop. So if I run this entire line of code, you would see it stops at the level of 3. And so this is very easy to understand. In the same manner, if I copy everything I have here without reassigning the value for A, because that value remains constant, we are not adding to it or removing to it within the loop. So if I bring it down and then I paste it on line 54 to 59, and then instead of break I'm using nest. Let's see what happens. So nest, what nest will do is it will stop the iteration at that point and continues again with the next iteration. So let's run it. You see what I'm saying. So one thing that you have seen is that it prints out all the values excluding the place where we don't want that, we want the iteration to stop, and that is at the point where the number is equal to 4. And you will see on the result that is displayed on the global the console, you would see that we have only 1 2 3 4 is omitted, 5 and 6. So at this point I want to say a big thank you for taking your time to learn with me on how to use some of these few basic things on our programming. So I hope to see you again in my next video. And for those of you who have sent an email to the mail I shared the last time, be rest assured that you will get the soft copy of the book, and this offer is just for the month of September. So thank you very much once again. God bless you.